Welcome back to Forest Talk, where we talk story about the plants and the animals and our connections that we have to our native Ōhi'a forests. Our guest today is the very talented Erzsi Kuba Palko. We'll be chatting about her new book, Under the Ōhi'a Tree. It's a children's book that reads much like a field guide to our native Ōhi'a forests, and I fell in love with it when I first read it. It published late last year, but before we get into all of that, um, I just have the usual requests and announcements. My name is Kim Rogers. I am the outreach specialist at Kauai Invasive Species Committee. My focus is Ohia and protecting our native forest ecosystems from rapid Ohia death and other forest threats. Remember, as always, healthy Ohia forests help prevent erosion and ensure we have healthy ocean reefs in which to swim, surf, snorkel, fish. A healthy Ohia forest also helps ensure we have fresh water to drink, to water our gardens, to bathe in, and to help stop the potential spread of rapid Ohia death. We do ask that before and after you enter the forest, that you be sure to practice good biosanitation. The first step in that is to brush mud off yourself, your footwear, your hiking gear, your hiking poles. And then the second step would be to spray with isopropyl rubbing alcohol. So two-step process. And also, during our time together, if you would, please follow the usual Zoom etiquette. That is, keep yourself muted. If you do have questions, pop them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll get to those at the end of our program today. We are recording. And like usual, I will send the recording out later this week. As well, I'll upload it to our KISK YouTube page. So I'll drop a link in the chat in a moment where you can find all of our 10 or 11, maybe 12 now, previous Forest Talk episodes, which are recorded and on our KISK YouTube page. I'll drop that link in case you've missed one or two or want to rewatch one or two. Also, I want to announce that our next Forest Talk will be May 7th and at 10:30 a.m. in the morning. And we'll be featuring a team from the National Tropical Botanical Garden who will share about Hawaii's native lolu. Lolu are our only endemic palm genus that we will find here in Hawaii. And I'll drop the registration link in the chat again once I finish chatting. But before our next Force Talk, so before May 7th, this Saturday, I just want to let everybody know if you have not seen it on my newsletter. This Saturday is ʻŌhiʻa Day, April 25th. And to celebrate, we'll be giving away some native plants while supplies last at our research station atop Kuamo'o Road in Wailua Homesteads. So from 9:30 to 11:30, we have Ohia, we have alahe'e, I think we have some kupu kupu, ava, ma'o, and naupaka, and maybe some other goodies in there too. So 9:30 to 11:30, Wailua Homesteads. So with all of that, I would like to introduce our guest today. Erzsi Kuba Palko is the author and illustrator of Under the Ōhi'a Tree. I'm going to spotlight her real quick and myself so you don't feel a little awkward there. And how do I do that? Add spotlight. Okay, so I think the two of us are spotlighted. And uh, Erzsi is the author and publisher and illustrator, I should say, of Under the Ōhi'a Tree, which is published by Best Press. But she's also published a coloring book of rhymes titled Enchanting Creatures of Hawaii Island, and that was published by Petroglyph Press. Her artwork has been exhibited in the annual Hawaii Nei Art Show in Hilo and the Gallery of Great Things in Waimea and the Olena Gallery in Hawaii. She's going to share a few slides with us about her new book, Under the Ōhi'a Tree, and the inspiration behind it. And then she's going to read it to us. It's a wonderful book. But before I turn things over to Erzsi, I do have a few questions that I'd like to kick off to get us started. But let me just say, Erzsi, you have managed to combine, whoop, here's the book. There's the book. You have managed to combine in one children's book all of my favorite things. So words, pictures, science and the
Yeah.
forest. And in
Yeah.
fact, this is kind of everything I do on a day-to-day basis as an outreach specialist for Kauai Invasive Species Committee. It's the thinking behind why I've started forest journaling workshops and why I've started this series called Forest Talk. And you have managed to combine all of that very succinctly in this beautiful book for targeted for children, but honestly, like I said, I find it like an adult's field guide to the forest. So congratulations and thank you for that. As soon as I read it, I knew I wanted to invite you here. Uh, a couple background questions though before we dive in. I know you live on Hawaii Island now, but I'm curious about where you grew up and how that experience might have influenced who you are today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that incredible introduction. It means a lot to be here, and it means a lot to be received by the science community in general, because you know, this book actually draws a lot on the research of so many people, and so yeah, for the for the science community to welcome this book really is yeah, very special. So I grew up on Oahu, born and raised there. Um, my mom's side are they came to Oahu and Molokai to work on the plantations from Japan and Okinawa, and my father emigrated from Hungary to escape communism. And so my brother and I grew up on Oahu and, you know, didn't own long pants, constantly doing outdoor things with my family. And I do. This was in my presentation, but I'll bring it up now. One of my main formative experience that tuned me into the forest was this incredible summer internship with the Nature Conservancy. It was the Ōhiʻa or stewardship internship that Pauline Sato organized. And I was in the watershed group. And so we went all around Oahu. And then we also traveled to Molokai, to Kamako, and then up to Pepeopai Bog and down to Kalaupapa, doing, I think, invasive species clearing mostly. But to have been able to do that for a whole summer in high school is the foundation of this book, I'd say. So, bravo to you and all the other environmental educators that are out there doing this stuff because it matters and it all counts. It all makes a really strong impression, these experiences that you folks are facilitating for people. So, and then the thing, I was gonna use a slide, but I'll just show it now since I'm on the screen. One of my favorite images in the book is this gradient showing how Ōhi'a grows from the from barren lava flows up to tree line, but also in different habitats. And this tiny little Ōhi'a, bonsai-sized Ōhi'a, is my memory from high school from Pepeopai Bog,
Hmm.
um, on that internship in Molokai with Pauline Sato and the Hawaiian internship program. So it's, uh, this book spans decades, I guess, of
I
learning
love
from
that.
many different kumu.
Oh, I
So,
love that.
yeah.
And thank you for sharing that because
Mhm.
it is so important, right, that we get our young people
Mhm.
out of classrooms and, in the ecosystems and on the Aina and just seeing how special this place is, which is another reason I love to take young people up into our forest too, because some of them don't make that journey. And that bog, pumala, Metrosideros polymorpha pumala variety, we
Mhm.
have here on Kauai, up in the Alakai and environs.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I love that we have that connection with that
That's really neat.
particular Ohia, that variety of Ohia.
And
Okay,
for anyone not familiar, I mean, at least my memory of it was, and I think I said it, it was incredible to see because of the acidic bogging environment. The Ōhi'a trees were growing this tall, but had their flowers and everything. So
and could
that
be a couple hundred years old.
was.
That environment, they survive and even thrive because they bloom quite regularly,
Mhm.
but only maybe 2 feet tall, but could be couple 300 years old. That's, amazing, right? So love that you have that connection. So art, though, talk to me a little bit if you would, and hopefully I'm not stealing from your presentation, but like as a young person, obviously you were getting out in nature and you had some great experiences. Were you always drawn to art? Were you always drawing? Was that something as a young person you were like, I want to be an artist.
Um, I wanted to be a dancer, so I pursued a lot of performing arts things, dance, theater, circus arts, in addition to
Wait,
studying
circus
science.
arts?
But yeah, so and always attached to storytelling though. So one of my favorite projects was doing summer circus theater programming, and every year I would select a children's book, and then that was always about the environment and care for the environment. Like the Great Kapok Tree is a great one, for
Hmm.
example.
Hmm.
And and then working with the students, we would go on field trips, you know, in nature in Hawaii into native habitats. And then based on their experiences, we'd kind of change and tailor the book to their experiences in nature. But it was always using this framework of storytelling.
Mm.
So in a weird way, that not a weird way really, but that path of performing arts led me back to one of the primary sources when I was working in that art form, which was back to children's books. But yeah, growing up, my mom is a professional calligrapher and then a graphic designer, and so I was always around my mom at her drawing table, doing graphic design work for different people, and then at the school that my brother and I went to, but. So I guess yeah, I guess I get it from her. And then one of my favorite activities as a kid was just to look through. We'd call it sea creature drawing. So we just look through, you know, field guides for sea creatures and draw an aquarium, and then put all the sea creatures, our fantasy sea creatures, in there. So we were always drawing really informally. And then in college, I really wanted to study abroad. So I actually dropped my biology major because they weren't going to let me go they weren't going to let me finish my biology major unless I took biochemistry, which was only offered every other year, so I couldn't study abroad when I wanted to. And I
Mm.
actually ended up dropping my biology major so I could go study abroad because it was one of my dreams. And there in Paris, I got to study painting at NSAD and be surrounded by really high caliber French students doing painting, and it was really intimidating. They were not nice to the other American and I until the last day of school, and then they kind of said, "All right, you're all right. You can come smoke and drink coffee with us," although neither of us smoked.
Paris. Oh my gosh.
But
What
it
a
was
great experience. Have you been back to Paris?
no, it was an experience. What it taught me was not needing to be liked to keep trying at something, and then it just taught me how painting. And I don't necessarily exemplify this in my art at all. It's still something that I'm striving for. Is or at least what the focus of that professor was to start seeing light.
Mm.
How is the light falling on this leaf or this branch or this body or whatever it is, and to really incorporate seeing light into painting. And in an extension, just to me, uh, this is a children's book. The the drawings are rather simple, but it's an exercise to me in seeing. It's not so much of this is my art. It's more just this nerdy thing of really getting to observe something really closely and see how things fit together. And so yeah, I think to me, drawing and painting are a powerful act of really observing. Yeah.
That is,
Like, and that's what you do with your nature journaling, I think.
yeah, and the observing and observation is something that I talk a lot about when we have a group out and I'm facilitating a forest journaling workshop. It's looking more closely. It's seeing how, like even where you're sitting right now, I've already noticed how the light is falling on you and how beautiful the light and the shadows are, just where you're sitting. But
Mhm.
yeah, observing, right? And being closer observers of what is around us. And,
Mhm.
whether that's in the forest or whether that's even in our backyards, just slowing down a lot, which I feel like we as humans need more and more of in our world is like just slowing down and like putting the screen down, right? And observing the world around us and seeing. So that's a perfect entree, I think, the to let you take it away. and share with us today. And then when Erzsi finishes with her, she's got some slides to share with us and she's going to read to us, which heavens to Betsy, I absolutely love when people read to me. We'll come back and have some more Q&A. So for those of you who are interested in learning more, have questions, please drop those in the chat or the Q&A, which is an icon you can find on the bottom of your screen. So feel free to start sharing screen
Right.
whenever you're ready.
And I just wanted to thank everyone who's present today. I'm so honored that you're sharing this time with us. Thank you so much. Okay, here goes. Uh, this here. Okay. So this first slide, mm, okay. This first slide is a photograph with my mother, who was a working graphic designer. And the best part of this project was how much I learned from her during this process. So that's why this picture is here. One of the hardest things for me anyway, working in on creative projects is getting feedback and getting real honest feedback and then having whatever emotional response I'm going to have to that and then and then tune into the value of that, how can this be improved? And so since I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm an emotional person, maybe it's not like this for everyone, but since that can be a very emotional process for me, it was pretty critical that I was doing that with someone who I share an eternal bond with, my mother, So she was there giving feedback from the beginning. So a funny story about this is that this book idea came to me when I was literally like in grad school, going hiking with my dog at 5:30 every morning before classes started, up on the Mānoa Cliffs Trail on Oahu, starting in the dark. And one day, the one day I didn't bring my rain jacket, because you should never not bring your rain jacket when you go hiking in the forest here, that's obvious. The one day I didn't bring it, there was this incredible deluge. I mean, just soaked to the bone, freezing rain early in the morning. So I was sprinting back on the muddy trail to our car with my dog. And I think because I was so miserable, I I just spontaneously started singing, and I've never done it before, and I've never done it since. It was very strange, and I just started singing, "Under the Ōhi'a tree, a little leaf said, breathe with me. Under the Ōhi'a tree, the ropey roots said, hug the earth with me." Whatever it was, and it just kept, stream of consciousness just started saying these lines, and I was kind of making myself laugh, which was making the misery fade as we were sprinting back to the car in the freezing rain. So that's how it started. I got home. I thought, oh, that would make an interesting children's book. So the idea just kind of came literally in a rainstorm, and I mocked up the whole thing. I don't think, I don't know if you can see, I know that I'm screen sharing, but this is actually it. If you can see me in the little, this is the very first mock-up. It's just a storyboard of those ideas that came on the trail. And then I showed it to my mom, and she said, "That's nice, Urge. It's really boring. It needs animals." And so for it to get to the point that Kim is saying that she receives it as a field guide for the forest is really, I have my mom to thank for that, who kind of, you know, uh, steered me in the direction of making this something that would be really valuable to everyone and not just this random thing that happened on the trail one day. So thank you, Mom. And she's also, well, I'm giving her credit. She did all the layout for the info sections in the back with her mad graphic design skills. So I'm forever grateful for that. And in that process of back and forth going over that, I learned so much from her. She's an incredibly talented and detail-oriented person, and I was not born detail-oriented, and so to be able to learn from that from her in this lifetime is one of the greatest gifts of this project. So that's that. And then there's Ōhi'a, my angel, my guardian angel puppy, who is also completely insane. So there she is, where we were when I adopted her. She was already over 4 years old from the Kona Humane Society, and she was so hyperactive. I actually tried to give her away twice the first week I got her because she was so difficult to manage, like very high energy dog. So this is not a dog that I could just take. I had to figure out how to, have her calm down a little bit so she wouldn't do really naughty things. Like I've told this story before, but like toilet papering the yard, for example, she did that twice. She's also was able to, bust out of hog fencing, that kind of dog. So anyway, while maybe I wouldn't hike every single day, it's because of her that we went into the forest, rain or shine, every single day. And I think I tallied it up, and this dog has probably been over 5,000 hikes at this point. The only days we don't go is if she's injured. She's gotten injured a few times. She's about to turn 16. So, and she's still spunky. So that's my Ōhiʻa. That's my Ōhiʻa with her mud boots on an expedition to photograph native plants at Ōla'a Forest Reserve, for anyone familiar on Hawaii Island. Um, and that's the funny picture on the right is her, oh no, mommy's photographing native plants again face. She's very impatient, which is also funny because so most of the things that I photographed used as reference photos for this book, it's not like I could sit there and contemplate things very fast. I'd have to do it very quickly because I had an impatient whining dog with me most of the time. But anyway, in all these adventures, this book is about Ōhi'a trees and a love for them from that's growing on the lava flow on the left, as you I'm sure can tell, and then up to windswept, you know, um, peaks uh, on the different islands, and even up to tree line on the islands with higher elevation areas, and falling in love with their form. Like I have a dance background, so I love movement. And what's so cool about really old trees is that they show movement in how they're growing. So I personally find Ōhi'a trees to be the most mesmerizing in terms of their form. So definitely part of why I've fallen in love with them. Um, just the way and also just the curve of their branches is fascinating. The tree branch on the left is actually the view right out of my window. So I think a very calming thing for me, and part of my favorite process of the book was looking at real photographs and just sort of, drawing and as if tracing over the real natural forms of these trees and just how incredible their gnarled beauty is to the way that they, host other plants. So there's ikaha deer-tongued fern and ohelo berries growing on the left one, and then the painu, the spiky silvery leaves growing on the one on the right. And so many different forms these trees take. Just incredible. So the tree that was the inspiration for the cover was actually where we were living on our first homestead. So there's Ōhi'a with that tree, and kind of a mishmash of that one. And then the largest Ōhi'a we've ever met is on Mauna Loa Road in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. So if you want to humor me, I obviously can't make you, but so that's my favorite tree in the universe is Ōhi'a. So I just invite you, I dare you, if you want to take out a scrap of paper or type it into your phone, I dare you right now to just think of what your favorite tree is, a tree that you have a personal connection with. Maybe it is an Ōhi'a, maybe it's your childhood mango tree or just I dare you to think of one of your favorite trees, the trees you really have a personal connection with. And just tune into that. Okay. And then once you do that, I dare you to stream of consciousness style, write down or think as many things as you can. Let's try to get up to five, but under the blank tree, and something that might happen, something a creature might say, something that might happen, but don't think about it. Just five quickly, as fast as you can. I'm doing it too, so I have the time right. Okay. Well, I hope some people took the time to do that. I was doing it just so that I would get kind of a rough timing right. So that was just to introduce another aspect of something another aspect of something that informed the book, which was do I have a slide for this? Yeah, I do. Wow. Okay. Was Julia Cameron's The Artist Way. So um a friend of mine, Priscilla, visited me and while I was in grad school and we were just talking and she said, "You know, you're blocked." And she meant artistically blocked. So she gave me this book and insisted that I read it. And so I was already working with a lot of Julia Cameron's tools. Julia, if you're interested in creative projects at all, I highly recommend listening to any interview by Julia Cameron. She's hysterical and just yeah, it's kind of like I think of her as a fairy godmother of the creative process. And so it's always fun listening to her, in my opinion. So she does a lot of this stream of consciousness stuff. So I was already kind of working with this stuff, not knowing why, just kind of doing these activities to see if I could get unblocked artistically, I guess. So I think that might have been why, part of why that song just sort of randomly came through while I was hiking. So that's one tool. And then the other thing that was happening was in grad school, I was working with Olena or turmeric and having to weigh, you know, 120 samples of turmeric, which is really, you have to be precise about it, but there's the washing and the piling and things that don't need that much focus. So the way that I survived it was to listen to Andy Serkis reading The Lord of the Rings. And there's a great audiobook that he does where he does all the voices from the movies. It's pretty insane. But what I took away mostly from it by actually listening to Tolkien's text again, having read it many years ago, but then revisiting it again this way, is how many creatures in that book create rhymes. So I was falling in love with just how silly rhymes were. So those two things were kind of floating around, which is why I think the book came through. It was just sort of falling in love with rhymes, with Tolkien's silly, absurd rhymes in his book, and then all these activities in the artist way. And then I just have this is totally random, but there's a tie-in to why Treebeard is sitting there. But my question to you all is, um, just to think, you can write it in the chat. I can't see the chat, but you can write it in there. Like, what is the closest relative to our native Ōhi'a trees? So I'm sure there are people in the audience that know, so you can write that in, and then I'll share what I've read. And please tell me if I'm wrong. So you can think if you know that. And for what I've seen reading things is that there are very similar trees in Tahiti and the Cook Islands, Metrosideros collina, I think. They're very similar, and it's on my list of things to do to actually clarify this with our state forester extension agent, JB Friday, to find out how our Ōhi'a trees are different from that species. The only thing one of the main differences are just the leaf bud scales. Like when buds come out, those kind of scale leaves that cover them, I think is one way that our trees are different, but I want to clarify that. Anyway, another very close relative of our native Ōhi'a trees are Metrosideros excelsa, which is the Christmas tree in New Zealand. I think it's Pohutukawa tree. But Treebeard, if you look at some of our really tall Ōhi'a trees and then look at Treebeard, you'll see that Treebeard kind of looks like an Ōhi'a tree. And the crazy story that I learned watching all those videos in the back section of how Lord of the Rings was made is they did the texturing on Treebeard by taking an impression of the bark of a Pohutukawa tree, which is a very close relative of the Ōhi'a tree. So Treebeard is kind of I think of him as a relative of the Ōhi'a trees too. Totally random. Sorry about that sidetrack. Okay, keep going if I can. If I can figure out. Okay, so another way that There's a whole lot of input from the science community too. So it wasn't just me hiking with my dog and reading Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. There's a lot of feedback. Once that ball started rolling of looking into what animals to include. I don't have a slide for this, but I did want to say this. One of the um, biggest inspirations for why this book names all 20 of our remaining forest birds, well, at least with their Hawaiian name, was because I had made one page that just had an Apapane, Amakihi, and Elepaio on it, kind of figuring they're on all the islands, which they're not, and not Elepaio. And then really digging into which birds we have left, and a lot of tears that we only had 20 left and that some have gone extinct in my lifetime. It was pretty earth-shattering. So at that's the point, at the tipping point, I guess, at which it went from being just a silly rhyme about ʻŌhiʻa trees to a very clear intention to have this book be of service in terms of environmental education and making sure that no child will grow up in this state, ideally, that doesn't know the birds that we have left to save. So thank you to, all the contributors to that body of knowledge that I was reading with the native birds. And then this goes into some other details. So a shout out to Dr. Cliff Morton at Manoa. I mean, another foundation for this book was just a really intense study of native plants. I mean, doing a lot of microscope work, looking at fine details on plants to know what to look for in the field, these crazy field trips. That's a Lehua Papa Metrosideros rugosa on Oahu, up on Pomoho Trail in the center there. But just getting to nerd out and botanize with other people that love native plants, it was the experience of a lifetime, truly. And I am forever grateful. And taking notes for that class, I learned by drawing. I have the notebook here. So I have a notebook filled with sketches of native plants. And that was pretty foundational for preparing to do this book too. Oh, that's just on a field trip. That's a valley on the Pomoho Trail that has every single color of Ohia growing in it. Maybe except the legendary or mythological white Ohia. But those are, you can see all the colors there. It's pretty amazing. I'm going to skip this slide because I feel like I'm going to, well, the top row are all polymorpha, Metrosideros polymorpha, and the bottom three are the three species we have on Oahu. And there's so many, I didn't get into the different varieties of polymorpha, but we also have three more distinct species on Oahu. Macropis that has those leafy bud scales on the left. In the center, Metrosideros tremuloides, or Lehua ahihi, that has smaller pointy leaves, and then that Metrosideros rugosa, or Lehua papa, close to the ground with those really bumpy leaves and white fuzz underneath. And then since this is geared towards Kauai, I don't have visuals on this one, but I was going to ask the question, so I meant to not show this slide until I asked the question, how many Ohia species are on Kauai? I meant to ask that question first, but so as far as I know, you folks have Metrosideros polymorpha, but also the Metrosideros waialealai variation waialealai. So I'll skip that. Huge mahalo to Dr. Rosemary Gillespie and her husband, George Roderick. Have never been able to see a native spider in the forest. But when I was researching the different insects that live, in and around ʻŌhiʻa trees, one of the most intriguing are the spiders. So, um, what is that movie? Hawaii Born of Fire has always been my favorite documentary on Hawaii. And of course, Dr. Gillespie is in there talking about spiders. And I remember watching that as a young person, and I still love watching that. So I was terrified to email and ask and request permission to use some of their research photos to include spider images in the book. So it took me a while, but I finally did, and I'm so grateful that they were gracious about it. So actually on the page for the Kauai birds, there is a stick spider, an Ariamnes huinakolu, from Kauai. It's the red one in the corner. And because of their permission, I was able to add that in, which is one of my favorite parts of the book, is hopefully really inquisitive little ones will be able to find these. And not only did they provide photos, but also just reading their paper, it gave me information about where to put them. So Ariamnes hoinokolu, it's dark red and it lives in moss. So on that page, you can find it hiding in moss. And similarly, another one is found in lichen, so it's hiding in the book in lichen somewhere. Um, another really cool hidden spider was just came about because I was reading the Pu'uva'avaa biological assessment for another art project, which is the most amazing ecological document I've ever read. And in there, there's this really cool picture of a spider also hiding in Usnea lichen. And so I reached out to Dr. Jessica Garb, who's now in Massachusetts, and she also was very gracious. So there's a hiding native crab spider in there too, thanks to Dr. Garb. Another incredible incredible connection and contribution was from Dr. David Chiso of the Snail Extinction Prevention Program and Dr. Noreen Young from Bishop Museum. I was also terrified to email them. So for a long time, the page with our native land snails or kahuli looked like the image on the left. That's how it was originally painted. I just kind of randomly drew a snail that sort of looked like the native Partulina phisa that we have on the Big Island. Uh, and was going to call it good. But uh, it didn't sit well with me and it felt really boring. So, and I was so inspired, of course, by the Kahuli documentary, incredible. Educators can reach out to the Bishop Museum and get permission to play that, and I think community groups too. And then Dr. Noreen Young had done this whole snail voting platform where students had voted for snails for their island. And so based on that work, I thought, to make this meaningful for a keiki like on every island, I need to get all these snails in there. And I haven't photographed them, So I reached out to them again, terrified, and they were so welcoming. And so thanks to them and thanks to the reference photos from the Snail Extinction Program website, there are now snails from all the islands in there. So my next challenge question is, can you find an extinct snail from Kauai on there? On the image on the right. Anyone know their Kauai land snails and tell me? There's one, and the extinct ones kind of have a glow around them to indicate that they're extinct. So if you notice one that you know might be from Kauai, you can think about what that is. A couple more seconds. And then this is just showing, what inspired these images. So it's the one in the bottom left. That really long snail is that extinct Corellia genus on Kauai. It was the largest native land snails that we had. Just beautiful shells. So that's the one representing the island of Kauai. Another story, another piece of gratitude to express is I couldn't find pictures of ʻiʻiwi chicks anywhere. I've still never seen a color photograph of an ʻiʻiwi chick. So in order to explain how ʻŌhiʻa trees provide habitat for nesting, I thought, okay, well, I'll just make a pair of ʻiʻiwi building a nest. Okay. And then it was as we were headed towards getting this book to print, it was just kind of sad looking at this empty nest. So I went back to Hawaiian Bird Life by Dr. Andrew Berger, and in there's a description of ʻiʻiwi chicks and a really washed out, blurry photo of some chicks. So kind of based on that, I drew some cartoons that I thought, kind of sounds like the description. But then when the book was vetted by Brett Mossman, an ornithologist who works on Hawaii Island, he looked at it and I told the publisher, no, that's not what they look like at all. She needs to, blah, 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 blah. And he gave very specific feedback. And based on his feedback, we were able to get it to the point where Brett signed off on it and said, yes, this is what ʻiʻiwi chicks look like. So that was another fun behind the scenes story where, drawing on the science community and people with experience in the field to be able to share something meaningful with keiki. And I already told this story about the bonsai-sized ʻŌhiʻa that I got to see when I was in that Hawaiian internship with Pauline Sato. Another fun thing that contributed to the book was reaching out to friends on social media just for fun. And I'm only bringing this page up because this is a Kauai one. And so Anianiao, originally I'd drawn it looking to the side just to it's more educational to really show the beak shape. So all the birds were looking to the side. And after a while, it was just getting really boring that every single bird was pretty much in the same orientation. So I very cartoon-like changed its facing forward and asked friends on Facebook, and the one on the right won. So that's the one in the book. And then I have to thank the team at Best Press, David Zaluka for taking on the book, and Kristen Nomber-Reed for the editing process that we went through, and contributions like suggesting to extend the back section, which has a lot of information about the species in the book, and that has really made a lot of educators happy, and that's thanks to feedback from Kristen Nomber-Reed. It's just as one example. And then people who vetted the book, such an honor to have Dr. Sam Ohugon III and Brett Mossman and Brendan Wang give feedback on it to make sure that it was really legit before it went to print. And an Olelo Hawaii scholar, Dr. Kea One-Smith, all the feedback they gave, it triggered, really in-depth conversation with Kristen about how to improve the book. So the process and the process of having so many eyes on it while it was scary and uncomfortable was really important and really an honor, and hopefully made the book of greater service to environmental education. Okay, really quickly, these are just some animals that I happened to photograph. Not all the animals that I've seen be able to photograph, but some fun ones you might want to look for while I'm reading through the book. Well, actually, first, this is something that's not in the book because I don't like Ōhi'a leaf galls. So this is your next, I don't like looking at them personally. This is your next trivia question for the day. Are these insects that form these galls on our Ōhi'a trees, are they native? So you can just think if you've seen that before. And what I've read is that yes, in fact, they are native. There are these native psyllids, endemic psyllids, and their host plant is the Ōhi'a tree. So there's one. I cut one open just from the leaves right outside. So that's what the nymph looks like, the growing baby one that's inside the gall. So you could do that too, assuming you don't move the Ohia material around. This is literally just from right outside. So in case you were wondering what they look like, there it is. This is one of the coolest things. So right in Kalaupā State Park, I can't like really do careful observations because of my crazy dog. So I was just walking her, and ended up with this little, inchworm like caterpillar on my shoulder, and freaked out because I thought, oh wow, this looks like the videos that I've shown biology students of our carnivorous caterpillars. So I had a macro lens and took these photographs on it and posted them on iNaturalist, and sure enough, people confirmed that this was the Eupithecia auricularis, our native carnivorous caterpillar. So that was pretty radical. And so that got added in right before it went to print. And there it is doing that behavior of snapping back like it would to grab a fly or an insect to feed. Another one, this was a kahuli on Mount Kaala under a kamakahala or labordia leaf. And this was actually noticed and identified by one of my classmates in the native plants class. Um, I'm just blanking on the name, but he was the one that noticed it. So I didn't notice this, but I learned from him to look under leaves to look for things. He teaches ethnobotany at Kapi'olani Community College. Um, I'm just blanking on his last name. So anyway, this snail I thought was Kaala subtirilla, one of the, this other species of land snail. So I painted it into the book thinking I was painting Kaala subtirilla. And then so it was already done. And then I thought, oh, I'll just post it on iNaturalist to see what the community says. And then sure enough, I had identified it incorrectly. So it's Philonesia hartmannii is what I photographed. And Kaala subtirilla is a more reddish brown. But the funny thing is I didn't paint it accurately. So I painted it more reddish brown than the photograph. So it looks like Kaala subtirilla in the painting. But anyway, it was just another activity in learning so much, like the learning so much just by the act of doing it, and observing and doing the art, and learning the differences through that, so it's just a funny story about that. Pinot Pinot is in there. That's photographed in the Kohala Mountains. koa butterfly while I was working on a koa project, forestry project. Those guys are so cute and they're flying around in the book. Kamehameha butterfly. And then one of my favorite things was to get to photograph this family of nene in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. So that, and you can see the original sketch that I did is really rough, but it was really sweet to get a whole family of nene photographed so that they can live in the book and be fun for Keiki to look at. I'm gonna skip over this. These are just oh well, I started playing. That's an ʻelepaio, a Hawaii Island ʻelepaio. And you can see how brown it is. So I just wanted to acknowledge that the ʻelepaio in the book is very brown, and it's not. It's I just have one ʻelepaio to represent ʻelepaio. It's just by Hawaiian name in the book. So your Kauai ones are more gray, I believe. I'm gonna skip that one. That's just an ʻiʻiwi bird up there. I guess these videos just play when I'm pressing things. You can see it flitting around up there. But it's just a nod to the Pu'u'o'o horse trail, which has made such a huge impression on me to get to see flocks of ʻiʻiwi birds feeding in the Ohia. And that's definitely a place to visit on the Big Island, although the parking is dangerous, so you can't leave anything in your car. Pu'u'o'o horse trail. Okay, and then finally, just an acknowledgement of the Lyman Museum in Hilo has an incredible collection of kahuli shells, so that was also inspiring to get to see that collection. Really quickly, I'm just going to show the illustration process. That's a mamane tree, gorgeous mamane tree on Mauna Kea. I started with sketches, layers of paint, and layers of watercolor, layers of opaque watercolor, scratching away the paint and more layers to get that look. Again, layers, paint, scratching away the paint, and layers and layers and layers. Same with the roots. And then this is the cover. Okay. All right. So that was that. Hopefully that wasn't too many words. So I'm going to launch into reading this, and I hope I haven't lost anyone with all those tangents. So without further ado, thank you for listening to this reading of Under the Ōhi'a Tree. Under the Ōhi'a Tree, Pueo the owl floats by silently, and her bright eyes say to me, "Look around. Listen with your whole being. What do you hear? What do you see?" Under the Ōhi'a Tree, a little leaf says, "Breathe with me." Under the Ōhi'a Tree, a bundle of aerial roots says, "Drink in the mist with me." A teeny tiny ʻŌhiʻa seed leaps into the wind and says, "Fly with me." Under the Ōhi'a Tree, sweet nectar calls the many birds who sing brightly. Under the Ōhi'a Tree, whom do you see? Apapane says, "I match the red flowers." Amakihi says, "I match the leaves." ʻelepaio says, "Here I am in brown, peering down." Uhini the tree cricket says, "Shh, I'm hiding in the dark, in a crack in the bark." Under an ohia leaf, who's that fast asleep? While the sun is out, what is Kahuli the land snail dreaming about? And who's gathering nectar and pollen so busily? It's Nalo Mele Maoli, the yellow-faced bee. Up in the Ohia tree, Nuku ʻiʻiwi says, "Can you find me? I'm a vine wrapping round with flowers that look like ʻiʻiwi bird beaks turned upside down." Up in the Ohia tree, how many other beings do you see? You can count them if you want. It's fun to do at library talks and have all the keiki count what they can see. And then I always say at the end to have them shout out their number. So you can put the number you see in the chat right now if you want, although I can't see it. And then I always say, whatever you said is right, because the question was, how many do you see? Way up high in the Ohia tree, ʻiʻiwi says, "Trees are our home for nests and places to rest, and many of us agree, Ohia trees are the best. We ʻiʻiwi once lived on all of Hawaii's main islands, but some forest birds may be from only one. Let's go see how they get things done." On the island of Kauai, Akike'e says, "At home in an Ohia tree is where you'll find me, and it's also true that my beak is light gray blue." Akikiki zips around with her gray wings, and her pink beak finds crunchy things. Anianiao says, if you haven't yet heard, I'm the tiniest Hawaiian forest bird. Puaohi eats some olapa fruit, then disappears into the rocky cliffs below. Too shy today to say hello. On the island of Maui and once Molokai or Lanai'u, Akohekohe says, as you can clearly see, I'm the rock star of the Ōhi'a trees. Kiwi says, having a beak this strong and big makes it super easy to break into twigs. Alauahio says, caterpillars are yummy, great for filling a hungry chick's tummy. And one note I'll make about this is I drew painted adult male birds for all the species except this one. This is actually a yearling. The parents are in the background. And originally there was different text with this to acknowledge the fact that an interesting behavior they have called helpers at the nest is that the yearlings will go and gather caterpillars and food and help feed their new, the new nesting chicks, their little baby brothers and sisters. And I just thought that was incredible. So that's why that's like that. On Hawaii Island, two akepa make a pair. The male has brighter feathers. What color does he wear? And another note, this came out a lot darker than I meant for it to, so the correct answer is orange. It kind of got a little red, so hopefully in any subsequent printings it'll get lightened up so it's more obviously orange. Ala V checks clumps of lichen for larvae hiding inside them. Akiapola owl goes tap 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 with the bottom part of his beak, then sensing a grub, nabs it with a tweak. Oma'o, more interested in fruit, fills her gray belly with bright red ohelo berries. Over the Ōhi'a trees, Io the hawk flies low. Under the Ōhi'a trees, a family of nene grows. Next to the Ōhi'a trees, palila birds put on a show, eating young green seeds in the mamane trees they love and know. Under the Ōhi'a tree, Ōpe'a Pe'a the bat is sleeping peacefully in the shade when a pair of alala arrive with way too much to say as they eat native fruit in their noisy crow way. Under the Ōhi'a tree, sunlight through the branches says, smile with me. Under the Ōhi'a tree, a tangle of roots says, hug the earth with me. Under the Ōhi'a tree, the giant trunk says, I'm so happy you're right here with me. Under the Ōhi'a trees, what will you hear? What will you see? And I'll add, whom will you come to know? And how will your hearts grow? Okay, the end. And then it's just that those information sections I was talking about that my mom laid out. And then an evening scene in the back. So, and there's my dog being annoyed that I'm taking pictures of plants. So thank you again so much for listening. And Kim, what should I do now?
Well, first of all, I think we should all thank you. And for those of you who have easy access on your laptop or your phone, find the react button and like Linda is clapping, show your appreciation. Can you see those coming up? And you can
No.
stop sharing.
Okay. Well, my mouse, remember when we were testing it and my mouse wasn't working? It's
Yes.
doing
Oh,
that
is it
again.
doing that again?
So,
Um,
uh,
Let me see if I can stop video, do you think? Oh, no, that put you uh yeah, I don't think I can unshare your
okay. Yeah, because my mouse isn't my mouse isn't working, so I'm
did
not
you
able to navigate myself very easily to do anything.
what did you decide if did you try hitting escape?
I just pressed escape. Okay,
There you
did
are.
that do it?
Will
Okay.
you put your video back on? Because I accidentally turned you off. There you
Sorry
are.
about that. Okay, that would have been an
Yay!
obvious thing to do to just press escape and sorry
Okay,
for
so you're getting lots of love. There were lots of
that. Okay.
hearts and clapping and all kinds of fun things happening with the react button. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to do it again. And then hopefully you can see the chat at some point. I will save it as well, but you're getting lots of love in the chat. I, I'm so glad because I'm in love. I'm like thinking as you're reading, I'm just right there with you. I thought I would be flipping around along in my book, but I wasn't. I would just, you read it beautifully too. Um, and and I loved hearing all about it, the backstory. But man, you do such a good job, and you're so dedicated to getting the science right, and not just like, oh, the color's a little too red here. It's usually a little more orange. I mean, the because the art that you're doing is not what I would classify as scientific illustration,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
And yet you're so dedicated to getting those details correct. And also not just like the color or the shape of the beak just right, but their behavior, like the storyline that you add in there so creatively is telling the story of them and their, each of the animals' behavior in the forest. Um, I have a couple questions. I'm gonna also, it sounded like a song Angela shared. So true. Oh, and Linda Elliott has your book at the Hawaii Wildlife Center. Is that the correct name, Linda? Um, in Hawaii? Is that where you're located?
Oh, I actually wanted to say that really means a lot that that's there, Linda. Thank you so much. And
Yeah,
actually,
we have it in our retail shop and also on our online store, but
thank
we were
you.
really excited when we first found out about it.
Well, and I want to say thank you to you folks for the really critical work that you do rehabilitating, injured native species. The bats in this book were inspired by the native bats that fly in the gulches around here, and one, actually flies in the yard. And unfortunately, there are feral cats that come through, and I found an injured bat one day, and panicked and didn't know what to do, and then was told to take it up to the wildlife center and drove it up there, and the the bat wasn't able to be saved because its wing was punctured in a way that it wasn't gonna probably be able to fly again. But just to know that endangered species received professional attention and care and compassionate care and a really sound assessment really meant the world to me. So I thank you so much for the work you do.
Oh, thank you. That was nice to hear. I mean, it is community driven. We've had over 7,000 patients come to us, but mainly by people like you that find them and want to do what's best for them. And, it is heartbreaking when they don't make it, but we always know we're making sure they don't suffer and that you can do the best for them. And when they do release back into the wild, it's, definitely everybody makes everybody's day. But that's why we like your book too, is, you know, uh, 15 years ago or more, when our first patient came in till now, there wasn't a lot of information about our native species. And I, graduated high school on Oahu as well, and just I didn't have the benefit of Pauline back then.
Mhm.
So it's lovely to have all these resources now and for kids and adults to get exposed to them. So thank you for your beautiful work.
Thank you so
And
much.
I have a question for you, Erzsi. And
Mm,
and thank you too, Linda, because she takes birds not just from Hawaii Island, but across the state. And
mm,
um, we've sent many birds for rehab and care from Kauai, where I
mm,
live. In fact, a Alexa albatross that I brought in uh, for rehab here to save our shearwaters, and it was in critical care and spent 4 months or maybe 5 months in your care a couple years ago, Linda. So thank you for all that you do. The book is also located, so it's at Hawaii Wildlife Center, but it's also located at the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park store. I just learned earlier this morning from a colleague of mine. And I have a question about your book and where to get it. But I thought, do you have a link you can put in the chat on the
mm.
best place to order it if somebody's interested, or
Well,
your website where they can learn more about it?
I mean the
Specifically, there's a question real quick. Um, for somebody who wants to order it for students through, it needs to be somebody who accepts DOE purchase orders. Do you know the answer to that?
yeah.
Oh, you do.
Oh
Fabulous.
wait. Okay, well. I'm gonna just write this in the chat. They're having some email issues, but there's someone at Best Press named Dimna, and she handles all of the education orders. So they might have changed the last part of their email though. So just go to bestpress.com and click through to educators, and you just need to email email the general education email, and you'll get a response from Dimna, and there's an educator discount for sure. So
Great.
definitely communicate with Dimna directly, and then yeah, Best Press is the best place to find it. Um, and I can also put my website on there, although I think it just links something about the book just links directly to the Best Press page anyway.
Well, and just your, if people want background information about you and or your other book, do you want to share with us anything about your other book that you have
Um,
published?
Well, again, it's part of that vein of falling in. Well, actually, so this is the other book. It's a coloring book. But it was again, it was just my love of the native species here and building on all the experience. It's the same background as this book. This book is kind of the precursor to the Under the Ōhi'a book tree. And originally, it was actually my best friend who lives in Ojai, who's an elementary school teacher, and I had made just a general coloring book, just with the scientific name of the species, and she dared me to write rhymes for all of these creatures, and I rolled my eyes and said no, and then I eventually started trying it, I guess, and started having fun. And so that was the first sort of foray into writing rhymes, which was reinforced by Tolkien's rhymes and reinforced by the Artist's Way. But yeah, this was the precursor, and so grateful to Petroglyph Press for picking it up and giving me feedback on that too.
That I'm glad you mentioned that about the rhyming. Was that
Mhm.
process, did that come? I mean, I know you had that moment underneath the Ōhi'a tree where it was pouring down rain on Manoa Cliff Trail and you
Mhm.
were singing and rhyming back to the car. But then when you actually sat down to write this book, did the rhymes make it more challenging, you think, to write, or did it allow it maybe to be more fun and carefree and so maybe came a little easier to you?
Uh, I I don't identify as a writer or have that be my strength. It was more I think it was really just driven by this desire to make it, well, to make it something that was going to be fun to engage with and also memorable.
Hmm.
This is in it at its heart, it was becoming a tool hopefully for environmental education. And for me anyway, one of the easiest ways to learn something is to have it rhyme or have it be like a song. I mean, I think all traditional cultures taught important information through oral traditions, and I'm sure rhymes were a part of that. It certainly helps me now. And so it was kind of driven by that, was a really strong desire to have this information be easy to remember. um and it was very challenging for me.
Okay.
But it was fun. I mean, that's the thing. It was challenging, but it was fun, and there was a very clear purpose. So it's not something that, I was born doing or comes easily to me. And I'm just noticing, I think I wrote my or my website wrong in the chat, so I'm going to try one more time.
Well, I thought the rhyming worked great, and I thought it, like I mentioned earlier, helped. Like it really, you focused it not on the easy words to rhyme, right? And you really felt like it was focused on the characteristics about that species, that was
Mhm.
unique to them, so that it wasn't just an easy rhyming word. That the chosen rhymed words were well chosen and related back to that species directly. So, um,
Thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate that. It was very intentional. Yeah, these were not the best rhymes that could have been written. It was very much trying to tune into a fact about that species that would make it memorable, something significant about that species for the most part. So
I
thank you
picked
for
up on
seeing
that.
that.
Yeah, no, I picked up on that. And the other thing too, I mentioned earlier your attention to detail for scientific accuracy, but also to Hawaiian language, right? You
Mm,
made sure that you use the Hawaiian names.
mhm,
And I don't know if people could see on the slideshow on the pages. One of the things I loved, and especially in the open, the front cover, inside front cover, I should say,
mhm.
um, it's a really light type, but you have the names of the
Oh,
various species
yeah,
included. So
yeah.
again, that's why I'm like, it's kind of like a field guide to the forest. Um, that you could
Well,
literally take out to the forest with you and be like, okay, now what's this plant or what's that insect?
I mean, it was because of Botany 661 with Dr. Morden. Because I had been teaching biology already, classroom biology, and I was absolutely mortified by how little I knew. I thought I knew, like I had done an internship in high school and I hiked a lot and I thought I knew some stuff. But to actually do a graduate level class where we went through basically every known native plant species was just jaw dropping. Just, and yeah, I had this deep feeling of everyone needs to know this. And there's so much, of course, that's not in the book. I mean, part of me wants to just do it all over again and smash in like, 100 times more species in there. But those names were a nod to this class and just to acknowledge or just a desire for many more people to be tuned into the incredible biodiversity that we have left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
I could chat on and on, but I just
Mhm.
realized that what time it is, and it's been a wonderful sharing. I'm sure that everybody could feel the passion and the love and the energy that you've put into this project. And we're so grateful for that. The rest of us get to enjoy that and to share it with young people. I think this is such a treasure of a book. And I'm so grateful to you for having taken all of the time. I can tell it took a lot of time and energy and thought to put together, and I'm so grateful that you did that so very much.
Thank you
So
so much, Kim. It's
we're
such an incredible honor to be connecting with you and connecting with your audience. And yeah, thank you for, the kind words you've had to say and how much as a environmental educator you see in the book. So I
yeah,
feel like the
yeah.
book is very seen by you. So
It's
thank
a
you.
beautiful book.
And thank you
And
everyone for being here.
yes, absolutely, everybody. Thank you for being here. Let's stay in touch. I'll get the recording edited down a little bit and uploaded to our YouTube page within the next few days. Everybody have a great day. Ahui ho. Until we meet again. Thanks,
Thank
Erzsi. Keep in touch.
you, Kim. Okay.
Okay, bye. Bye, Connie.